Okay, here we are once again. Put it back to the side. I had my tree, but looks a little bit oh, I know. Let's try this one up here. My husband is a Cowboys fan. Been a Cowboys fan for years and years. And we didn't make it tonight. No, we didn't. And I think this is the last story I'll read out of this book called Christmas Stories. And we gotta pick one tonight. And I haven't picked one. We did Dancing Dan last night, which is kind of interesting. There's lots of stories in here. The Story of the Goblins Who Stole the Sexton by Charles Dickens. The Night Before Christmas by Nikolai Gogol. Oh, that one's a long one. It goes from 25 to 81. No, we won't do that one because we want to do a story that's an hour, not 2 or 3 days. I don't like that. Let's see, Christmas at Thompson Hall by Anthony Trollope. Leo Tolstoy's Where Love Is, God Is. That one was a big one. Anton Chekhov in Vanka. O. Henry's A Chaparral Christmas Gift. Saki, H. Monroe's Reginald's Christmas Revel. Vladimir Nabokov, Christmas. Bella Fleece Gave a Party by Evelyn Waugh. Green Holly by Elizabeth Bowen. Christmas is a Sad Season for the Poor by John Cheever. The Carols Sing by John Updike. Christmas Fugue by Meryl Spark. And The Loudest Voice by Grace Paley. The Turkey Season by Alice Munro. And Crush by Richard Ford. And I think I'm leaning towards reading Green Holly by Elizabeth Bowen. And I've been just kind of doing these by random. Let's see, that's page 257. And I need to go get me my water because heaven knows I need 55, 56. Here it is. 57. Green Holly. Alright, I'm going to quickly go get me a glass of water. I've got 7 minutes before we start. I always try to start at 7 o'clock exactly. I'll be right back. trolls recently, but you never know. You never know. Somebody. Thank you, Rainbow. Thank you so much. All right. We're getting 5 minutes till, and I got me a water. And my lights got disconnected, my Christmas lights. And I can't figure out what happened. Hopefully everyone had a really nice day. Sunday. Tomorrow I go back to work, which ought to be, have to go back into the office. Kind of cold in here. So, yeah, we have about, it's about 20 degrees in northern New Mexico. Very cold. We had snow. But the streets and roads that you drive on are clear. All the side streets are not clear. So you have to be careful when going to a house. Oh, look it. Oh, I have to show off my new emote. I got a new emote. It's a storyteller. And the storyteller is is holding 3 children. And you have to kind of open it up to be able to see the 3 kids. See what else is up here. I think this one is the one with the sunglasses. Yep, here we go. 3 more minutes, still countdown. I change it from the Blizzard. This is a cabin music. Cozy Cabin by Tim Janis. So I hope it's not too obnoxious. Yeah, we got a new remote. Someday we'll have a computer and it'll be fancy in here, and I'll be down here in the little corner and you guys will be watching all my stuff. But we'll get there. Also thinking about doing a 24-hour stream on my birthday, March 30th. And the way that I can do it is if I can get other streamers to cover, like co-stream with me, so that when I'm asleep they'll be on. Maybe we could do that. But we'll have to rigmarole it up. And then that way I also can share all the wonderful people that have helped me stay on Twitch and enjoy it. I'm having a good time reading these stories. I hope you're enjoying them. Whoever's lurking, I see you lurkers, non-chatters. But hey, I lurk in a lot of streams. Just listen to what they have to say. Not always having something to say. So lurkers are just terrific with me. In fact, I think they should have some kind of, we're going till 8 o'clock. We're doing an hour. This one is about 25 pages. Oop, 6:59. This one is called, it's by Elizabeth Bowen. and it's called Green Holly. Yeah, I don't think I can read for 2 hours. I really don't think I can. I need a lot more water. Oh, speaking of water, it's 7 o'clock. I better start. Okay. Put on the glasses so I can see the little writing. Mr. Rankstock entered the room with a dragging tread. Nobody looked up or took any notice. With a muted groan, he dropped into an armchair, out of which he shot with a sharp yelp. He searched the seat of the chair and extracted something. "You're Holly, I think, Miss Bates," he said, holding it out to her. Miss Bates took a second or two to look up from her magazine. "What?" she said. "Oh, it must have fallen down from that picture. Put it back, please. We haven't got very much." "I regret," interposed Mr. Winterslow, "that we have any. It makes scratching noises against the walls." "It is seasonable," said Miss Bates firmly. "You didn't do this to us last Christmas." "Last Christmas," she said, "I had Christmas leave. This year there seems to be none with berries. The birds have eaten them. If there were not a drought, the leaves would not scratch the walls. I cannot control the forces of nature, can I?" "How should I know?" said Mr. Rankstock, lighting his pipe. These three by now felt like Chevalier and his old Dutch. They had been together for 40 years, and to them it did seem a year too much. Actually, their confinement dated from 1940. They were experts in what the censor would not permit me to say. They were accounted for by their friends in London as being somewhere off in the country, nobody knows where, doing something frightfully hush-hush, nobody knows what. That is, they were accounted for in this matter, as if there were still anybody who still cared to ask. But on the whole they had dropped out of human memory. Their reappearances in their former circles were infrequent, ghostly, and unsuccessful. Their friends could hardly disguise their pity, and for their own part they had not a word to say. They had come to prefer to spend leaves with their families, who at least showed a flattering pleasure in their importance. This Christmas it so worked out that there was no question of leave for Mr. Rankstock, Mr. Winterslow, or Miss Bates. With 4 others now playing or watching ping-pong in the next room, they composed in their high-grade way a skeleton staff. It may be wondered why, after years of proximity, they would continue to address one another so formally. They did not continue. They had begun again, in the matter of appellations, as in that intimacy they had by now, in fact, by some time ago, completed the full circle. For some months they could not recall in which year Miss Bates had been engaged to Mr. Winterslow. Before that she had been extremely friendly with Mr. Rankstock. Mr. Rankstock's deviation towards one Carla, now at her ping-pong in the next room, had been totally uninteresting to everybody, including, apparently, himself. If the war lasted, Carla might next year be called Miss Tongue. At present Miss Bates was foremost in keeping her in her place by going on addressing her by her Christian name. If this felt like their 40th Christmas in each other's society, it was their first in these particular quarters. You would not have thought, as Mr. Rankstock said, that one country house could be much worse than any other, but this had proved, and was still proving, untrue. The army, for reasons it failed to justify, wanted the house they had been in since 1940. So they, lock, stock, and barrel, and files and all, had been bundled into another one 6 miles away. Since the move, tentative exploration, for they were none of them walkers, had established that they were now surrounded by rather more mud but fewer trees. What they did know was their already sufficient distance from the market town with its bars and movies had now been added to by 6 miles. On the other side of their new home, which was called Mopsam Grange, there appeared to be nothing, unless, as Miss Bates suggested, swineherds keeping their swine. Mopsam village contained villagers, evacuees, a church, a public house on whose never-open door was chalked "No beer, no matches, no tea served," and a vicar. The vicar had sent up a nice note saying he was not clear whether security regulation would allow him to call, and the doctor had been up once to lance one of Carla's boils. Mopsam Grange was neither old nor new. It replaced unnecessarily, they all felt, a house on this site that had been burned down. It had a Gothic porch and gables, French windows, bow windows, a conservatory, a veranda, a hall, which puce and buff-tiled and pitch-pine paneled rose to a gallery. In fact, every advantage. Jackdaws fidgeted in its many chimneys, for it had, till the war, stood empty. One had not to ask why. The hot water system made what Carla called rude noises, and was capricious in its supplies to the only 2 mahogany-rimmed baths. The electric light ran from a plant in the yard. If the batteries were not kept charged, the light turned brown. The three now sat in the drawing-room, on whose walls mirrors and fitments, long since removed, left traces. There were, however, some pictures. General Montgomery, who had just shed his holly, and some Landseer engravings that had been found in an attic. 3 electric bulbs, naked, shed light manfully, and in the grate the coal fire was doing far from badly. Miss Bates rose and stood twiddling the bit of holly. "Something," she said, "has got to be done about this." Mr. Winterslow and Mr. Rankstock, the latter sucking in his pipe, sank lower between their shoulder blades in their respective armchairs. Miss Bates, having drawn a breath, took a running jump at a table which she propelled across the floor with a grating sound. "Achtung!" she shouted at Mr. Rankstock, who with an oath withdrew his chair from her route. Having got the table under General Montgomery, Miss Bates, with a display of long, slender legs, clad in ribbed scarlet sport stockings that was an interest to no one, mounted it, then proceeded to tuck the holly back into position over the general's frame. Meanwhile, Mr. Winterslow, choosing his moment, stealthily reached across her empty chair and possessed himself of her magazine. What a hope! Miss Bates was known to have eyes all the way down her spine. "Damn you, Mr. Winterslow," she said, "put that down." Mr. Rankstock, "Interfere with Mr. Winterslow. Mr. Winterslow has taken my magazine." She ran up and down the table like something in a cage. Mr. Rankstock removed his pipe from his mouth, dropped his head back, and gazed up and said, "Gad, Miss Bates, you look fine." "It's a pretty old magazine," murmured Mr. Winterslow, flicking the pages over. "Well, you're pretty old," she said. "I hope Carla gets you." "Oh, I can do better, thank you. I've got a ghost." This confidence, however, was cut off by Mr. Rankstock's having burst into song. Holding his pipe at arm's length, rocking on his bottom in his armchair, he led them. Hi ho, onto the green holly, Most friendship is feigning, most love merely folly. Merely folly, merely folly. Contribute Mr. Winterslow, peeking up and joining in, both saying, then hi ho the holly, the life is most jolly. Now all, said Mr. Rankstock, jerking his pipe at Miss Bates, for all three went through it once more with degrees of passion. Miss Bates, when others desisted, being left singing, hi-ho, sing, all by herself. Next door, the ping-pong came to an awe-struck stop. At any rate, said Mr. Rankstock, we all liked Shakespeare. Miss Bates, whose intelligence, like her singing tonight, seemed some way at the tail of the hunt, looked blank, began to get off the table, and said, but I thought that was a Christmas carol. Her companions shrugged and glanced at each other. Water time. Her companions shrugged and glanced at each other. Having taken her magazine away from Mr. Winterslow, she was once more settling down to it when she seemed struck. What was it that you said about you got a ghost? Mr. Winterslow looked down his nose. At this early stage, I don't like to say very much. In fact, on the whole, forget it if you don't mind. Look, Mr. Rankstock said, if you've started seeing things. I'm only sorry, his colleague said, that I've spoke. Oh, no, you're not, said Miss Bates, and we better know just what is fishy about this Grange.
Did you guys get a lot of snow?
There is nothing fishy, said Mr. Winterslow in a fastidious tone. It was hard, indeed, to tell from his manner whether he did or did not regret having made a start. He had ridden, but not perhaps wholly painfully. His eyes, now fixed on the fire, were at once bright and vacant. With unheeding, fumbling movements, he got out a cigarette, lit it, and dropped the match on the floor, to slowly burn one more hole in the fiber mat. Gripping the cigarette between tense lips, he first flung his arms out as though casting off a cloak, then pressed both hands clasped firmly to the nerve center in the nape of his neck, as though to contain the sensation there. She was marvelous, he brought out, what I could see of her. Don't talk with your cigarette in your mouth, Miss Bates said. Young? Adorably. Not so very. At the same time quite, oh well, you know what I mean. Uh-huh, said Miss Bates, and wearing. I'm certain she had a feather boa. You mean, Miss Rankstock said, that this brushed your face? And when did this happen, said Miss Bates with legal coldness. Cross-examination clearly became more and more repugnant to Mr. Winterslow in his present mood. He shut his eyes, sighed bitterly, heaved himself from his chair, and said, oh well, and stood indecisively looking towards the door. Don't let us keep you, said Mrs. Bates. But one thing I don't see, if you're being fed with beautiful thoughts, why you wanted to keep on taking my magazine. I wanted to get distracted. There are moments when I don't quite know where I am. You surprise me, said Mr. Rankstock. Good God, man, what is the matter? For Mr. Winterslow, like a man being swooped around by a bat, was revolving, staring from place to place, high up round the walls of the gaunt, lit room. Miss Bates observed, well, now we have started something. Mr. Rankstock, considerably kinder, said, that is only Miss Bates' holly flittering in the wind. Mr. Winterslow gulped. He walked to the inch mirror propped on the mantelpiece, and as nonchalantly as possible straightened his tie. Having done this, he said, but there isn't any wind tonight. The ghost hesitated in the familiar corridor. Her visibleness, even on Christmas Eve, was not under her own control, and now she had fallen in love again. Fallen in love again, her dependence upon it began to dissolve in patches. There was a concentration of every feeling of the woman prepared to sail downstairs in grande tenue. Flamboyance and agitation were both present, but between these, because of her years of death, there cut an extreme anxiety. It was not merely a matter of how was she, but of was she tonight at all? Death had left her to her own mirror, for into no other was she able to see. For tonight she had discarded the feather boa. It had been dropped into the limbo that was her wardrobe now. Her shoulders, she knew, were bare. Round their bareness shimmered 1,000 evenings. Her own person haunted her. Above her forehead, the crisp, springy weight of her pompadour. Round her feet, the frill of her skirts on a thick carpet. In her nostrils, the scent from her corsage. Up and down her forearm, the glittery slipping of bracelets, warmed by her own blood. It is the haunted who haunt. There were lights in the house again. She had heard laughter, and there had been singing. From those few dim lights and untrue notes, her senses, after their starvation, set going the whole grand opera. She smiled and moved down the corridor to the gallery, where she stood looking down into the hall. The tiles of the hall floor were as pretty as ever, as cold as ever, and bore, as always on Christmas Eve, the trickling pattern of dark blood. The figure of the man with the side of his head blown out lay, as always, 1 foot, just touching the lowest step of the stairs. It was too bad. She had been silly, but it could not be helped. They should not have shut her up in the country. How could she not make hay while the sun shone? The year round, no man except her husband, his uninteresting jealousy, his dull passion. Then at Christmas, so many men that one did not know where to turn. The ghost, leaning further over the gallery, pouted down at the suicide. She said, "You should have let me explain." The man made no answer. He never had. Oh, we're getting to see what the ghost sees. Ooh, it turned into a ghost story. Behind a door somewhere downstairs, a racket was going on. The house sounded funny. There were no carpets. The morning room door was flung open, and 4 flushed people, headed by a young woman, charged out. They clattered across the man and the trickling pattern as though there was nothing there but the tiles. In the morning room she saw one small white ball trembling to stillness upon the floor. As the people rushed the stairs and fought for place in the gallery, the ghost drew back, a purest act of repugnance, for this was not necessary. The young woman to one of whose temples was strapped a cotton wool plaid, held her place and disappeared around a corner, exulting, "My bath, my bath." "Then may you freeze in it, Carla," returned the scrawniest of the defeated ones. The words pierced the goats, who trembled. They did not know. Who were they? She did not ask. She did not care. She never had been inquisitive. Information had bored her. Her school lips had framed one set of questions, her eyes a consuming other. Now the mills of death, with their catching wheels that stripped her of semblance, cast her forth on an everlasting holiday from pretense. She was left with, nay, had become her obsession. Thus it is to be a ghost. The ghost fixed her eyes on the other, the drawing-room door. He had gone in there. He would have to come out again. The handle turned, the door open. Winterslow came out. He shut the door behind him with the sedulous slowness of an uncertain man. He had been humming, and now, squaring his shoulders, began to sing, "Mere folly, mere folly," as he crossed the hall towards the foot of the staircase, obstinately never raising his eyes. "So it is you," breathed the ghost with unheard softness. She gathered about her with a gesture not less profound for being tormentedly uncertain. The total of her visibility. Was it possible diamonds should not glitter now on her rising and falling breast, and swept from the gallery to the head of the stairs? Winterslow shivered violently and looked up. He licked his lips. He said, "This cannot go on." The ghost's eyes, with tender impartiality and mockery, from above swept Winterslow's face, the hair receding, the furrowed forehead, the tired sag of the jowl, the strain-reddened eyelids, the blue-shaved chin. Nothing was lost on her. Nothing broke the spell. With untroubled wonder she saw his hand-woven tie, his coat pockets shapeless as saddlebags, the bulging knees of his flannel trousers. Wonder went up in rhapsody. So much chaff in the fire. She never had had illusions. The illusion was all. Lovers cannot be choosers. He'd do. He would have to do. I know, she agreed with rapture, casting her eyes together. We are mad, you and I. Oh, what is going to happen? I entreat you to leave this house tonight. Winterslow, in a dank, unresounding voice, said, "And anyhow, what made you pick on me?" "It's kismet," wailed the ghost zestfully. "Why did you have to come here? Why you? I had been so peaceful, just like a little girl. People spoke of love, but I never knew what they meant. Oh, I could wish we had never met, you and I." Winterslow said, "I have been here for 3 months. We have all been here. As a matter of fact, why all this all of a sudden?" She said, "There's a Christmas Eve party, isn't there, going on? One Christmas Eve party there was a terrible accident. Oh, comfort me. No one has understood. Don't stand there. I can't bear it. Don't just there." Winterslow, whether he heard it or not, cast a scared glance down at his feet, which were in slippers, then shifted a pace or two to the left. "Let me up," he said wildly. "I tell you, I want my spectacles. I just want to get my spectacles. Let me by." "Let you up?" the ghost marveled. "But I am only waiting." "She is more than waiting. She set up a sort of suction, an icy, indrawing draught. Nor was this wholly psychic, for an isolated holly leaf of Miss Bates, dropping at a turn of the staircase, twitched. And now you could think by chance did the electric light choose the moment for one of its brown fade-outs. Gradually the scene, the hall, the stairs, and the gallery faded under this fog-dark but glass-clear veil of hallucination. The feet of Winterslow under remote control began with knocking unsureness to mount the stairs. At their turn he staggered, steadied himself, and then stamped derisively upon the holy leaf. "Bah!" he neighed. "Spectacles!" By the ghost now putting out everything, not a word could be dared. "Where are you?" Weakly her dress rustled 3 steps down. The rings on her hands knocked weakly over the paneling. "Here, oh here," she sobbed, "where I was before." "Hell," said Miss Bates, who had opened the drawing-room door and was looking resentfully round the hall. "This electric light." Mr. Rankstock, from inside the drawing-room, said, "Find the man." "The man has gone to the village, Mr. Rankstock. If you were half a man—" "Mr. Winterslow, what are you doing, kneeling down on the stairs? Have you come over funny? Really, this is the end." At the other side of a baize door, one of the installations began ringing. "Mr. Rankstock," Miss Bates yelled implacably. "Yours, this time." Mr. Rankstock, with an expression of hatred, whipped out a pencil and pad and shambled across the hall. Under cover of this, Mr. Winterslow pushed himself upright, brushed his knees, and began to descend the stairs to confront his colleague's narrow but not unkind look. Weeks of exile from any hairdresser had driven Miss Bates to the Alice in Wonderland style. Her snood, tied at the top, was now thrust back, adding inches to her pale, polished brow. Nicotine stained the fingers she closed upon Mr. Winterslow's elbow, propelling him back to the drawing room. "There's always drink," she said. "Come along." He said hopelessly, "If you mean the bottle between the filing cabinets, I finished that when I had to work last night. Look here, Miss Bates, why should she have picked on me?" "It has been broken off, then?" said Miss Bates. "I'm sorry for you, but I don't like your tone. I resent your attitude to my sex. For that matter, why did you pick on her? Romantic? Nostalgic? Blue Danube fixated ein? There's Carla, an understanding girl, unselfish, getting over her boils. There are Avis and Lettice, due back on Boxing Day. There is me, as you have ceased to observe. But oh dear no, we do not trail feather boas." She only wore that in the afternoon. "Now let me tell you something," said Miss Bates. "When I opened the door just now to have a look at the lights, what do you think I first saw there in the hall?" Me," replied Mr. Winterslow, with returning assurance. "Oh, no, indeed no," said Miss Bates. "You? Why should I think twice of that if you were striking attitudes on the stairs? You? No. I saw your enchanting inverse, extended, and it is true stone dead. I saw the man of my dreams. From his attitude it was clear that he had died for love. There were 3 pearl studs in his boiled shirt, and his white tie must have been tied in heaven, and the hand that had dropped the pistol had dropped a white rose. It lay beside him, brown and crushed from having been often kissed. The idyllicity of those kisses, for the last of which I arrived too late." Here Miss Bates beat her fist against the bow of her snood. "Will haunt, and my haunting satisfy me. The destruction of his features before I saw them made their former perfection certain where I am concerned. And here I am left, left to watch dust gather on Mr. Rankstock, and you, to watch, yes, I who saw in a flash the ink-black perfection of his tailoring, mildew form on those clothes that you never change, to remember how both of you had in common that way of blowing your noses before you kissed me. He had been deceived, hence the shot, hence the fall. But who was she, your feathered friend, to deceive him? Who could have deceived him more superbly than I? I could be fatal," moaned Miss Bates, pacing the drawing room. I could be fatal. Only give me a break." "Well, I'm sorry," said Mr. Winterslow, "but really, what can I do, or poor Rainstock do? We are just ourselves." "You put the thing in a nutshell," said Miss Bates. "Perhaps I could bear it if you just got your hairs cut. If it comes to that, Miss Bates, you might get yours set." Mr. Rankstock's re-entry into the drawing-room, this time with brisker step, for a nice little lot of new trouble was brewing up, synchronized with the fall of the piece of holly again from the general frame to the Rankstock chair. This time he saw it in time. "Your holly, I think, Miss Bates," he said, holding it out to her. We must put it back, said Miss Bates. We haven't got very much. I cannot see, said Mr. Winterslow, why we should have any. I don't see the point of holly without berries. The birds have eaten them, said Miss Bates. I cannot control the forces of nature, can I? Then hi-ho, sing hi-ho. Mr. Rangstock led off. Yes, she said, let us have that pretty carol again. So it was a ghost story. Yeah, it ended up as a ghost story. And that, that's what I usually read is ghost stories. And so that was quite interesting that the three of them got to see the ghost. Yes, what a very interesting read. I'm not quite sure what book will start next Friday. Because I've been reading scary stories, and but the scary books that I have right now, they're too long. The stories are too long, and I really like this idea of to read a whole story in one reading, so that you get the whole story instead of piecemeal from time to time. So I thank you so much for showing up, and I don't think there's anybody I can raid right now. Let's see. Oh yeah, I have my friend Lacey who I could read. Raid. We could raid Miss Lacey. All right. But first, let's thank all the people that have joined us this evening. First, I want to thank Rainbow and as my moderator, and Shine Chan. And then we want to thank for joining us another TV viewer, Apple Pie Chart, Capsis, Liddy Tuff, Painfulest, and You Got Grapes. Thank you so much for joining in, and let's raid Lacey. She is, let's see what Lacey's doing right now. Oh, she's finishing up a Lego set, and that's been a really popular thing to do this last week because it was International Lego Day. Give her all the love, and thank you guys so much. I'll be back next Friday night at 7 o'clock, and we'll start a new book. Thank you so much, and have a very scary night.